People Pros, and welcome to the People Champion podcast by Elevate HR. Elevate HR is a cloud-based platform that lets you easily manage and onboard your employees' payroll, leave, and performance. If you're an innovation-driven HR professional, then this podcast is for you. As the People Company, part of our mission is to elevate the HR professionals, and we do that in three ways. Firstly, through a system that makes your work easy and fast. Secondly, through our community where you get to network, connect, and belong. And thirdly, through this podcast that helps you enhance your skill set as a people pro. I'm your host, Pilin Kasarak, Head of Community here at Elevate HR Africa, and I'm ready to dive into yet another insightful conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about learning and development, and more specifically, how to measure the impact and effectiveness of learning and development in our organizations. I'm joined by two incredible people pros. I cannot wait for you to meet them. So I'll get right into the introduction, and I'll begin with, they say ladies first. Nikki is the head of people at Greenwells. She's passionate, extremely passionate about learning and development and people. I don't know if I've met anyone who's as passionate about professional development like you. I think you're the perfect advocate for personal and professional development. Right, Nikki? How are you?
I totally agree.
Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Hi, guys. I'm Nikki, formerly Curate Mwiti. I love everything learning and development. I feel like learning and development is like the magic bullet for all people issues, whether people are feeling stagnant, people are feeling unhappy, people not feeling motivated, or even from the employer side, if you want to engage your people more, have loyalty. Like I feel like learning and development is the magic bullet for all people issues. I'm really passionate about learning and development. Have I said that enough times? Let me repeat. I'm really passionate about learning and development.
Awesome. Super excited to finally have you on the set. Thank you so much for gracing us. And then secondly, we have Bookie, who is an experienced HR generalist. He has experience cutting across multiple sectors, be it NGO, fintech. Bookie, what sector have you not worked in?
Probably the next sector.
The next one. All right. So tell us a little bit about yourself as well. What are you most excited about this conversation?
All right. Hi to the people who get to watch this later. I thank you, Billy, for having me. It's been a long time coming. In a nutshell, I am Bookie, as you mentioned. I love being involved in spaces where we get to champion and advocate for the people agenda. That's basically what I love doing. And that's why I'm in the HR space.
I love that, the people agenda. Well, let's begin from the premise that, learning is extremely priceless. How do we measure its value in any organization? Maybe we can begin with you, Nikki.
Okay, so for us to measure the value of learning and development, we need to start from somewhere. Like, what is the objective? Like, sometimes I feel like people who do learning and development initiatives for the sake of it, like to tick a box so that they can say, yeah, we're doing this. But if they don't have an objective from the word go, it would be very difficult to measure whether it was successful or not. So first starting with having an objective. And then now from there, it'll be then what are the key things that will show whether this initiative was a success. So sometimes like everybody has sales team. It could be like they want to see increased sales, or they want to see better retention. They want to see more engagement. So when they know exactly what it is they are aiming for, it gets easier then to measure. And then you start by having a baseline. How was this thing before we did this initiative, right? So how are the sales revenues before we did this program for our sales team? And then now they can measure. So it's just basically having a goal for the learning and development program, whatever it is. If it's an agenda, if it's something continuing, if it's a one-off, having a goal, and then having like numbers before this initiative and after this initiative.
I love that. And maybe Ndambuke, to chip in, can you share tips on how we can craft an L&D strategy that fosters continuous growth in organizations?
Right. Just to add on to what Nikki has mentioned, and really she's captured it very, very well. When it comes to L&D, it's very, very important to, one, see the bigger picture of the organization. So when you think about L&D and being able to craft a very, very good L&D strategy, one, it has to be linked to the overarching strategy of the business. It becomes very redundant for any organization to come up with an L&D strategy, which is totally withdrawn from the overall strategy. So it becomes very important to ensure that the strategy in itself is aligned to the overall organization strategy. The other thing that I feel like is very, very important for any strategy is to ensure that, you know, I feel like for HR professionals, we need to have this mindset of design thinking. You know, you have the end user, which is now the employee, at the back of your mind, such that when you're coming up with any initiative and all that, you have these people in mind, so that whatever plans that you have, you are able to know, okay, will employee X be able to benefit from this particular training? When you come up with this particular course, will we be able to see the end results? So I would say those two things top of mind would come first.
All right, Nikki?
Added to what you're saying, from experience, this is personal. Something else that I would really like to see as a HR professional is a very active buy-in from management. Sometimes it feels like this L&D these HR people have pushed for this, then they might agree and all of that. But if they don't show support, like very active support by engaging, like let's say something as basic as a training, would have like just a training or a workshop where the top managers don't show up because they're busy, or they feel like the material is already things they already know, which that kind of attitude trickles down. So yes, they'll say, yeah, we support this is and they're the ones who've approved the budget. But if they don't actively show their support, then it waters down the effect of it. I really need to say that from experience.
So buy-in from leadership.
Yes.
All right. I love that you talked about, that you guys have the people agenda in mind. That involves, employee satisfaction and retention. How does L&D contribute to employee retention and satisfaction? And feel free to draw from your personal experiences in the different organizations that you've worked in.
Okay. So any learning and development agenda will help you do your work better. And that gives you a certain sense of fulfillment and just pride in your work, which when everybody wants to wake up and go somewhere where they feel that they're making a difference, they're doing something excellent, and all because of the learning and development agenda, whatever training they've gotten through mentorship, coaching, whichever aspect it came in, you're able to do your work better, so you feel more proud of yourself and you feel better about work, you're happier, you feel more excited about work. When it comes to then retention, just giving one point on each, then he'll give the rest. Any initiative, L&D initiative takes some investments. Maybe it's time investment or money, whichever. It costs mostly the company. Yeah? So when an employee sees that the company has invested in them, it makes them feel like, oh, okay, I matter. Like they see me, they care about my development. Sometimes they even you might not see the direct relationship between what the initiative and your job, which makes it feel better. Like they care about me beyond my role. They have a future plan for me. So it goes a long way in making people feel loyal, and connected to the organization, which helps the retention numbers.
Whenever we have individuals who've gone for training, so what do we do with these particular individuals? Do we then put them in multi-project teams, for them to be able to apply whatever it is that they've learned? Do we then have them in global exchange programs? Probably there's an office that we don't have individuals who maybe we don't have many roles, but then again, we have a role in another country. So we second these particular individuals. So those are the two things that if you look at it really when it comes to retention, so people are able to move within the organization. What does that mean ultimately? They won't look for work outside, right? Because they feel like, yes, I am learning, but after learning, I am able to, grow within the organization. So I think that's how I'd capture it really. So
absolutely. So when you look at it, learning and development ultimately contributes positively to the company's bottom line at the end of the day, right? All right, let's talk a bit about innovation. As the people company, part of what we do is innovation. We're passionate about people, and that's why we develop innovation that helps unleash the potential of their people. So when it comes to technology, like right now we're in the process of just looking at how we can enhance that, especially when it comes to the people. What role do you think technology plays in L&D?
Probably I could give it a stab.
Yeah.
Technology has become the main thing, such that organizations that do not adapt to this technology will die. There's this phrase, adapt or die. Yeah. So any organization that does not leverage on technology would ideally die. So when you look at, or rather when you think of what technology, how we can leverage on technology and its importance, one, you'd see technology has come and it's made it easy for organizations to cut on cost. I believe before COVID, people would go for trainings wherever. I would probably go to Europe to go for my training.
Europe.
In an ideal world.
In an ideal
right?
world.
Yeah, in
right?
an ideal world. But then again, right now, do I really need to go to Europe? The trainer can, we can have a virtual class. So it becomes easier. The other thing is that we have what we call micro-learning. So we've seen employees who really don't want to be in a class. Probably Pili is a fast learner, I am not a fast learner. So you find whatever it is, the content that I get to consume, ideally I get to consume it at my own pace. And then the other thing that technology has also done, or rather brought about, is also data insights and analytics. So it becomes very easy for the people in the learning and development function to be able to just go in the back end, just trying to track, get to see how long are these learners staying in this particular course? What feedback are we getting from that? What can we push? Probably you've seen your learners love probably productivity, then you get to push such content to them. So those are the things that I would actually mention that technology has brought about.
I love that. Nikki, I'd love to hear from your perspective as well.
I like the bit about the remote aspect of learning, which also now brings the aspect of scalability. Then you're able to, the same content, you can have millions, if possible, of people learning the same thing, when before it would have been virtually impossible to, it's just a logistical nightmare to be able to train all those people, let's say it's a training, or impart the same knowledge. Something else I love about what technology has done is make learning personal, so we don't all have to consume the same content at the same time. So in a course, if a course has very many themes, you can choose what you like. You can choose what you like or what you feel is necessary for you at that point and go on with it, as opposed to before we'd all have to continue with this curriculum from start to end. I like also the bit about technology making more engaging. Like, think of when we use alternate reality, AR, VR to foster, it becomes a whole the other game altogether, and it's something enjoyable and something you can really get into. The first time I was exposed to alternate reality was seeing someone mimic a site. Like they're doing something for an architect, and the architect wanted to be able to show somebody, this is, if you do these plans this way, if you put this room this way, but before they would have had to do like 1,000,001 different drawings showing this. So anyway, long story short, just like how amazing it is, then that it makes, using alternate reality makes just the learning more engaging and more interesting and all of that. Yeah, that's what I can say about technology.
I love that. I think it just reminded me that, and I wouldn't want to fail to mention that at Elevate HR Community, we are launching some masterclass programs geared to enhance professional development. I'm sure they're going to be really, really exciting. So that's something to watch out for. We'll share more details in the community. So if you're watching and you've not yet joined our community, please consider joining us. All right, now let's talk about return on investment versus value on investment. Two sides of the same coin, I would say. Could you share insights on how to measure like these metrics? How do you measure return on investment, value on investment? Is there one that's more significant than the other? I'd like to hear your thoughts. Maybe I could start with the Bookie.
Oh yeah, sure. I think the first thing is definitely to understand what ROI means and what VOI means. In layman's terms, ROI is literally the return on investment. So here you get to see the benefits. Just to give the formula, really, it's the benefits less the cost over the cost times 100. Very, very simple. So here when you talk about the benefits, what do we mean? We talk about there's a learning program that has happened. Has there been increased productivity? In terms of, there's also probably, has there been any cost savings? But then again, when it comes to the costs, this is basically the sunken cost. What the company used for them to be able to implement that particular system. But when it comes to VOI, that's basically the value on investment. Here, so you get to see, when it comes to the value on investment, it's not really tangible per se, but fundamentally here you will be able to see, and probably just to give an example, for you to be able to distinguish between ROI and VOI, we have a sales team, right? This sales team has undergone a particular training. When you want to check the ROI for the, in terms of financials, what the organization will do, they will get to see has there been any increase in sales? you know, how is the customer satisfaction survey? But when we want to see the VOI, that's the value on investment, we will be able to ask questions like, one, did we get to, has there been an enhanced team collaboration? You know, such things. Do these particular individuals, are there concerted efforts within the sales team for them to be able to achieve a certain goal? So when it comes to VOI, you really cannot touch it. But then again, these are things that if they're not there, they will definitely affect the ROI. So when it comes to the two, for me, I would say they're not mutually exclusive per se. I would say any organization should be very, very keen to ensure that ROI and VOI actually going hand in hand. You know, in as much as we want to see the financials, we also need to see the value that this particular training has brought about. Okay, so when it comes to, yes, we've gone through any communication training, has communication improved among the team members, within the organization as well? So that's how I would put it. So to say one is more important than the other would be to put the organization, rather an organization, at a detriment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Nikki, you're smiling. I know you want to chime in.
As you're talking, I remembered how the first, when I was a much younger professional, I hated hearing about ROIs. I was like, oh my God, like why? Like just appreciate, like this is a good thing I'm coming up with.
Yeah.
Like stop asking me about this. So when I discovered VOI, I was so excited. Now look guys, we don't only have to focus on the numbers, as important as they are.
Yeah.
The other intangible benefits, and I'm more partial to the value on investment, though companies do need to focus on both ROI and VOI. But I feel like the value on investment is wider. Like it has it encompasses so much more than the return on investment. I feel like the return on investment is so narrow. Like we just want to see numbers. Yeah.
Show me the money. The numbers.
Well, if you're resource constrained or a resource constrained or a young organization, of course you need to follow the money, see whether it's helping, but then not to lose sight of the other intangible benefits. Yeah.
All right. So final question on trends. What trends do you foresee taking shape in the L&D space?
I know Nikki has many, so I'll just say my first.
Yeah, Nikki looks like she has a ton. So we'll start with the Bookie.
Right. So one thing that's currently happening, and some interesting article I came across recently, is that there's a lot of labor within the market, but then again, there's a shortage of skills. So in terms of L&D, what's going to happen? L&D is literally going to take a skills-based approach, right? So here we are going to be able to assess different skills within organizations, probably what people have, what people are missing in terms of skills, so that we are able to ensure that we have filled these gaps. Either it's training these particular individuals internally, or being able to get individuals outside the organization to come, you know, so that at least there's also peer-to-peer learning in terms of mentorship and all that. So for me, really, the skills-based approach is something that I am seeing, because there's, oh my God, I feel like there is really a need of skills. And currently where I'm working, this is something that we've also really tried to assess when it comes to our high potentials, or rather high performers. What we did first was just trying to see, okay, what are their key core expertise? And when it comes to their key core expertise, just getting to understand, these are the key core expertise that these guys have. But then again, what are the expertise that are needed within an organization? So I'm working for an NGO. What are the core expertise needed within the NGO space? So I feel like that's where organizations are leaning towards. Yeah.
Are you big on upskilling and reskilling within your organization as well?
Oh yes, big on that. I, to be honest, for any organization that's not big on upskilling and reskilling, you'd realize that you end up wasting a lot of time trying to get talent out there, talent that is needed by other organizations. Yeah, so we are literally taking this particular talent from a very small pool. So it's very, very imperative for any organization to try as much as possible to upskill and reskill, because we understand we are in a very dynamic environment. And in this dynamic environment, we need to ensure that our employees are sort of versatile, for lack of a better word.
I love that. I love that. Nikki,
in my minute,
I know you had like, let us all stop you, please.
Yeah, we will stop you.
Talking of evolving workplace, evolving world, like I feel like the focus now already it's there, but I want to see even more of it, and it's going to be there. Well, when we're recruiting, we'll be looking at learning agility number one, because what you already know is not going to be so important if you're not like very fast in knowing, I don't know this is where I can learn it and how fast I can learn it, which is basically what learning agility is. So I feel like the focus is going to be when recruiting, when promoting, when thinking of leadership roles, we're going to be looking at people's learning agility. Number two, we're already doing that, but we're going to rely even more heavily now on data and predictive data. Like, okay, so when we did this and this was the outcome. If we now add more resources to that, this is what's gonna, and now we'll just use data to make all the decisions for learning and development, which will be a good thing, right? We're not coming from a place of opinion or feeling, but that will be good. So I feel like there'll be even more emphasis on data and predictive data. Again, AR/VR, like I think we're gonna really get big on AR/VR for our learning and development. Like, when you experience it, you're like, all learning ought to be like this. Yeah. The other thing is, which I really like, that we're going to shift away from only looking at return on investment or even value on investment to something I saw and I really liked, return on experience.
Oh, yes, return on experience.
Return on experience. So we don't have to be so narrow. We're like, okay, how was the experience like for all of this throughout this whole learning, and whatever the thing was, what was the experience, without us only thinking if there are no numbers, it wasn't a good thing. You didn't stay for 5 years, it wasn't a good thing. We're just going to focus on the return on experience. Yeah, okay, let me stop there.
Awesome, wow, thank you so much.
I think maybe to add something very, very, I mean, we're already speaking about it, and that's AI.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, just being able to leverage on AI is something very, very important. Yeah, so I think in the future, it's something that ideally we need to continuously utilize, because if we don't utilize it, then people will utilize it outside there, which ideally would not really help the organization. So ideally, you'd find organizations wanting to pick that up and taking AI up.
Yeah. Are you currently using AI? Have you started using it in any of your L&D strategies?
Well, apart from probably just trying to see, help me write comms for ChatGPT and all that. But really, oh yes, we have a very robust tech team where I'm currently working, and we are constantly just trying to see what are some of the things that we are able to do. You know, so we recently just came up with an app called Ask Bookie. So Ask Bookie, we came up with this particular app during mental health awareness month. You know, so where employees would just get onto WhatsApp, you just click on the number, interact. It's able to bring up questions, and in case you have any issue that any person that you'd want to talk to, there are numbers over there. So it was very, very interactive. So we are seeing that coming up. I mean, I think I mentioned design thinking is very important. Have the end user in mind so that you come up with things. If they don't work, great, try to improve them. If they do work, then you try to look for ways to improve them.
I love it. I love it.
Talking about that app has reminded me of something else that I see is growing, and I hope it becomes a trend. I don't know if I'm giving it a word, but the gamification of
love it.
Enough said.
Actually, in our organization, we're really big on gamification. So we've gamified how we learn over at Elevate HR, and also in the community. That's also something that we're launching. I really don't want to give away too much, but we're launching actually this August, now that it's Learning and Development Month over at Elevate HR. So watch out for the gamification that is going to be happening. We're calling them, it's an EPD, like you know, a play on Elevate HR professional development points. Yeah, so it's gonna be really exciting. We're launching next week. So yay, yeah. So I'm gonna give us 30 seconds to just give a parting shot to our audience, centering around L&D, advice to anyone who's, you know, thinking of crafting a robust L&D strategy that they can measure, you know. So over to you. Let me start with Bookie, and then we'll finish with Nikki.
Yeah, I think it was only fair since you started with her.
Yes.
DEI, as you say, right?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Exactly. So my parting shot, I feel like probably I've captured all of it when I was speaking, but I think the important thing for any L&D professional is to think outside the box. You see, we have since moved from the traditional methods. You know, we used to call it training and development, right? Now we're in learning and development, and I'm sure it's going to change to something else. So I believe for any individual who is in this particular space, very, very vital for you to be able to continuously have the end user in mind whenever you're coming up with programs, whenever you're coming up with any learning and development initiatives. Also have buy-in, because Nikki really captured it well. Yes. Have buy-in from the top management. The other thing is, if it fails, try again. Think of it as a prototype. Don't think of it as, you know what, this has failed and that's it. So for any person who is in the L&D space, have this design thinking in mind, have the end user in mind, such that whenever you come up with any initiative, if it fails, great. You just get back on it, trying to see what you can do to improve. If it works, great, continue to just make it robust. So have design thinking in mind.
Yeah, design thinking, fail fast.
Exactly.
All right, Nikki.
My parting shot is not necessarily to only HR professionals, but anybody in the work world. For them to see learning and development as the savior, like this, it's something that gives them control over their careers. You know, like this is the one thing that you're totally in charge of. How much you will learn or unlearn and relearn is really all up to you, and there's no limit to how much you can learn. And it's your only surefire way to future-proof your career. Like the only way you're ever gonna, the only sure way you can, the only sure bet that your career will thrive, will survive changes, is for you to embrace learning and development. Like we also what happened during COVID, like that really shook people up. Like your really good job could end suddenly. Your company can fold. Anything can happen. So if you don't have learning agility, you're not interested in upskilling, reskilling, then you're in danger of extinction. So I challenge everybody in the work world to view learning and development as their control, them taking back control over their careers. Like how much you can learn and learn and relearn is all up to you. You don't need anybody to be your sponsor. The power is in your hands. That's what I love about learning and development. Like I feel like it's us, okay, not us, like we are the gods. Like, but it just gives you power to be in charge of your career. Yeah,
I love that. There's no limit to what you can learn.
Yes.
What a wonderful way to end the podcast. Thank you so much, Nikki and Bookie. You have been amazing guests. We have learned so much. And if you're watching, please let us know what parts of the conversation that you really enjoyed. And please also share your tips on the chat section. We'll be really looking forward to engage with you. And if you're looking for a system to manage your employees' payroll or leave, then Elevate HR is your people partner. Till next time, bye.